Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour, Saga 960. What an interesting conversation about Aboriginal midwifery, a topic that I never realized was an issue. But it's fascinating because one of the things that I've really learned during 2020 is the number of issues that are really prevalent in our society that I just wasn't aware of previously, and particularly in regards to diversity, where our Aboriginal communities, our racialized communities, get far worse services in a lot of different areas, whether they be legal, policing, healthcare, et cetera. And so I thought that it might be helpful to sort of take a step back and think about all the different things that we've learned during 2020, because I think 2020 has been a year of learning for me and for a lot of people. I've had the opportunity to have this radio show on Saga 960 every night, Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock. And I have had over 300 shows, almost 350 shows. I've interviewed over 500 guests. And it has, number one, been really interesting. And number two, it's kept me sane during COVID-19 because I'm a reasonably, at least I have been a reasonably social, active individual in politics and business. I was president of the Mississauga Arts Council. I was the chairman of the Mississauga Summit, the Western GTA Summit. I'm chairman today of Transit Alliance, which is a civic advocacy organization in Mississauga and across the GTA. In fact, I have been a speaker on social capital, on finance, on mergers and acquisitions, on transit, et cetera. And because of all of those different things, I've interacted with a lot of wonderful people. And then this year, no, it all sort of came to an end. And I know it's been similar to a lot of you, and whether you've been as active in civic issues as I, or whether it's just going out and socializing and having fun, which also has been obviously restricted this past year. But what has been very helpful, if not critical for me, is being able to interview people on a fairly regular basis, like every night, and get to know what they're all about and what makes them tick. And it's been interesting to me, and I've learned a lot. And so I thought I'd try to summarize it and share it with you in sort of a what did I learn in 2020, particularly given that, frankly, it's now a month into 2021, and giving thought to how we're going to live the next couple of months, because most experts, I think, are currently saying that it's going to be 6 months until the summertime, at minimum, until such time as we really return to normal and vaccines have been distributed enough and put into enough arms such that we can go back to somewhat normal lives. So what did I learn? I'm going to break it down into 5 pieces. I'm going to make some comments about COVID-19. I'm going to make some comments about the economy. I'm going to make some comments about politics, about relationships, and then about ourselves. First, about COVID-19. I think number one, I've had the opportunity to interview physicians and scientists and PPE people and testing people and lots of healthcare practitioners and emergency preparedness people. We weren't prepared. And we've got to be more prepared in the future, because clearly these kinds of, some people think COVID-19 or derivations thereof, new versions of, are going to be around for a long period of time, almost like the common cold. And lots of people think a new pandemic or a new something rather is going to come again. And given the impact to people's lives, to the economy, we've got to be better prepared. I interviewed a couple of union leaders who said that there was a royal commission, a judicial commission, in fact, after SARS. And they said that this judicial commission learned a whole bunch of different things and made a whole bunch of different recommendations. And it was as if we completely neglected and forgot about all of them, which is an incredible shame. And one of the findings was primarily that we weren't prepared in long-term care back in SARS. And what was it? In the spring, 85% of all of the mortality was in long-term care facilities, and still long-term care is a major issue. And so if we didn't learn from SARS, if we didn't learn from H1N1, and we're not learning from COVID, when the blank are we ever going to learn? We had supposedly inventories of PPE, inventories of ventilators that we didn't turn, that we didn't keep effective. And so therefore it was a waste. We've got to be better prepared. Number two, that we knew that physical distancing was key, but we didn't implement it soon enough. Number three, that we called it social distancing rather than physical distancing, and social distancing was wrong. We didn't need to be socially distant. We just needed to be physically distant. And I think that because of this focus on social distancing, we ended up creating a lot more mental health issues than we otherwise would have needed. We needed to be 6 feet apart. We needed to wear a mask. We needed to wash our hands. We needed to cough and sneeze into our elbows and things like that. We needed to do basic public health things, but we didn't need to be apart socially. We can reach out via electronic means. We can talk to people across a patio or across a room 6 feet away. And I think that really harmed. And we did other things that were silly in regards to closing the parking lots on parks so that people didn't feel like they could get out and get vitamin D, get exercise, get to interact with people. And, you went out, I went out, we went into parks, and we found that people were respectful of it. They stayed in their own bubbles. I was walking on pathways where people would divert off and ensure that they were 6 feet away. So we didn't treat people with trust, respect, and honesty, I don't think, or at least governments didn't. And so I think that was a big mistake. I think that mental health was not focused on nearly as much as it should have been. Public health was number one, no question. Economy was probably number two, no question. But the mental health was an issue and is a continuing issue. I think teenagers that had no interaction with their friends and spent their times in bed on classes and other things are going to be harmed. I think people that graduated from either high school or from university or from colleges this past year and how their jobs deferred and delayed are going to be impacted negatively and have been negatively impacted. I think that people that are alone and seniors that are either alone or had to go through health issues alone or had to die alone. I think it's just been an incredible shame. And so therefore, social distancing is not the right term. It's physically distant, but not socially distant. We did a massive effort on vaccines, and we probably accelerated the development of vaccines that would have taken normally 5 to 10 years in 5 to 10 months. And so that's been a heroic effort and an important effort. So those are some of the learnings on COVID. Number two, the economy. I think that there's a couple learnings here. Number one is we have had this incredible digitization of the economy. Probably in 5 or 10 months, we've gone through what would have happened normally in 5 or 10 years with online buying and online communication and at home. I'm coming to you from my home office, which I haven't been out of in almost 9 months versus when I used to travel every week. So it's a whole different world that we live in today than we've lived in the past. And we've accelerated what probably would have happened anyway in regards to the control of the internet, the influence of the internet, social media, electronic communication, digitization, etc. But it's happened so much more quickly. Because of that, I think we've negatively impacted our main streets, our retail, our restaurants to a degree that is shocking. And I think that the bankruptcies, the companies that are saddled with debt they never ever would have imagined before, and therefore cannot be what they were going to be, is another shoe that is dropping and will continue to drop for a while. And I think that we haven't come to a realization of what we're going to need to do for small and medium-sized businesses, and that's where so much of the economy is, and entrepreneurship is. And so I think it's a huge shame. Third thing on the economy is that as I've studied prior financials, and some of you may know that I'm doing a part-time doctorate in business on economic downturns and challenges, is that people that invest, that pivot, that rediscover during tough times are the ones that are most successful long-term. Some of the biggest wealths that have been created have been initiated during tough times. And I think that the companies that have pivoted, the companies that have relaunched, the companies that have invested in CapEx or acquisitions or new opportunities will be those ones that are successful long-term. And, we've got brand new companies that are dominating the stock market today. And I think those are the ones that have invested, not the ones that just shut it up and waited for this whole thing to end. I think we've also had an appreciation of technology and science. Like we probably never had before, where people understand things like flattening the curve and vaccines and testing because they're listening to press conferences on a daily basis in regards to it. And so therefore, I think that we may have a better opportunity with climate change, with green activities, with other science and technology, with other digitization than we may have had without this terrible experience for the past year. Number three, on politics, I think we've learned a lot as well. And I think that we're going through a pendulum change. And I am a firm believer that politics goes through these pendulum changes. And I think after the fiscal crisis of 2008, 2009, we had this move to to populism, to extremes, both on the right and to the left. Bernie Sanders on the left and Donald Trump on the right. And you can think about similar kinds of people, whether they be, the stay and leave in Brexit, the right wing Doug Ford. And Rob Ford and people of his ilk in Canada versus Green New Deal and massive investments supported by NDP and Green Party people in Canada. So I think that you've had this extremism over the course of the last couple of years that I think is going to come back to the mainstream, because I think that people during COVID have had appreciation, not everybody by far, but a lot of people, a little bit more for the common good and for getting together to try to solve this problem, and that the extremism hasn't worked, and respect for Tony Fauci, for an example, in the United States, or for our leaders from a public health standpoint in Canada. So I do think that we're going to have to invest a lot in stimulus, whether that be infrastructure stimulus or green stimulus or just employment support and income support stimulus. But I think that that's going to come, and that's going to be government playing a fairly significant role in our economy for the next year or two. And then we're going to have to figure out how to deal with deficits and debt after that. But what that means is that hopefully we've got a chance for our politics to become more moderate, to become more centrist, to become more one for all and all for one, and get rid of the extremism on the right and the left. Which leads me to number 4, which I think is relationships. And people have talked about COVID-19 and staying at home in isolation, or shelter at home orders, or in bubble, or whatever you call it, where people have either had lots of babies or gotten a divorce. And I think when you're forced to spend a lot of time with people, you get to know them real well. And you get to know who's there with you in the tough times and who's not with you in the tough times, who has resilience and who doesn't have resilience, who you want to be with. I used to work for Jim Pattison, and Jim Pattison had a kind of a funny but critically important test for a lot of people. He said, it was his airport lounge test. And he says, when you get stuck in an airport lounge for 8 hours because it's snowing outside, who could you actually be with for 8 hours and have an interesting conversation with, and know that you're going to support each other and protect each other and keep each other interested. And so I think COVID-19 has done that for all of us. It's told us who are our true friends. And that's important. But at the same time, there was an interesting article in the Atlantic Monthly that said that we've lost a lot of the second level of friendships or contacts in COVID-19, that we've maintained the family and the close friends. But those second level, what Mark Granovator, a sociologist, called the weak links, but that they were incredibly important to us because they were the ones that brought new ideas, new resources, new opportunities, new spouses, et cetera, to us, or introduced us to our spouse, that we've lost those, that we're not as connected to our wider community as we may have been in the past. And I think that's true. And I think we've got to work at that now. And we've got to make sure that we ensure that when we reopen, that we reestablish ourselves in our communities, our wider communities, and not just those close communities. Which brings me to number 5, and probably the most important one, ourselves. I think COVID-19 has been a collective timeout. It's been an opportunity for us to go on a retreat to a monastery and be silent for a while and figure out what's important for us. How do we want to be remembered? What do we want to focus on? What are we passionate about? What is our legacy? I've spoken to so many people that have either been really frustrated with what's happened because they can't go and do other things they would normally do, or they've been really rewarded by the opportunity to think about what they're really interested in, what they're passionate about, what they want to do, what they want to be remembered for, how they want to contribute to their family or to society. And they've started new business, or they've started new artistic endeavors, or they've been newly creative in different ways, or they've given up something they were addicted to. And I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to that have really used COVID-19 as a collective timeout. And maybe we as a society needed this timeout so we could figure out what's important, self-reflected, understood ourselves, become self-aware, and figured out what was important to us. So those are my 5 learnings from the last year for 2020. We're the first month done in 2021. 75% of us, according to statistics, have already given up on our New Year's resolutions. And so I want to recommit for the next 6 months, because it's going to be 6 months or so until we're out of COVID-19, to take advantage of the situation we're in. And reiterate a couple of things. Number one, on the COVID-19, don't get tired, don't get COVID fatigue. A mask, 6 feet of distance, physical distancing, not social distancing, until we get vaccinated, can solve so many of our problems. I spoke to Mark Keeley, a buddy of mine, whose brother passed away in 3.5 weeks, David Keeley. He was fit. He was in a bubble. He didn't have any pre-existing conditions. He got bad luck. Somehow he got the virus. 3.5 weeks later, he's gone. Don't be or know David Keeley in your own life. I hope, because Mark was devastated. He lost his brother in 3.5 weeks, and so let's be doubly careful, and let's not get fatigued and tired, and let's put in. This is the test for our generation, and we can do it. We're asked to stay at home and physically distant, not socially distant, physically distant. Number 2. Economy. It's the opportunity to invest. It's the opportunity to pivot. It's the opportunity to reinvigorate ourselves in something new. And let's not forget those local businesses that have been so important to us in the past. And let's invest in them and support them. Number 3, in politics, this is an opportunity to come together. Let's do it. Number 4, in relationships, grow those relationships. Support those people. Don't be socially distant, only be physically distant. Figure out what's important in the people that you're close to, and branch out, because it's how we branch out that we flourish. And number 5, think about this time as an opportunity to think about personal growth. It is an opportunity to be alone and self-analyze ourselves, be self-aware, start getting fit. I could use it. Start being introspective, launch a course, take a course, do those things that you've always wanted to do. Think about what is the legacy that you want to leave. If there was ever an opportunity to sit back and think about what the legacy is that you want to leave, how you want to be remembered when someone reads your eulogy, this is the 6 months to do it. Take that opportunity. It's like, the way I've described it to someone, it's like being given a sabbatical. How many of us would love, typically, the opportunity to have a sabbatical? I spoke to a friend of mine who, a year ago, before COVID-19 occurred, went on a 10-day retreat to a monastery where she was silent and meditated on her own for a month, 10 days. And she loved it. And then she was incredibly frustrated by COVID-19. The difference is, one she volunteered for, the other one she was forced into. There is a difference. But she and we and all of us have been given an opportunity to meditate, to self-analyze, to become self-aware, to think about what's important to us. So take the opportunity. Anyway, my couple of thoughts for 2020. Have a great night. You can hear me every night, Monday through Friday, on Saga 960, streamed online, www.saga960am.ca, or all my podcasts and videocasts on briancrombie.com. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.